pioneering thinkers from countries right around the world. Hello, Om Shanti, and a very warm welcome to today's Masterclass, one of 21 Masterclasses in New Consciousness, a whole series looking at new ways of being, thinking and doing for today's rapidly changing world. Well, in this time of coronavirus, where all of us getting used to the rules and regulations that are there to keep us protected physically, but are we equally paying attention to the spiritual laws that are there to keep us feeling safe and protected from within? My name is Philippa, and I'll be with you throughout the series as we together listen to speakers, to yogis, to meditators from countries right around the world as they share with us their tips and their navigational tools for coping with this time of rapid change. Well, if there's one word that we have heard repeated over and over again in the news reporting to do with coronavirus, it is the word unprecedented. As we go from unprecedented health emergency, perhaps into unprecedented economic emergency, and that's on the back of already an unprecedented environmental emergency, it doesn't take too long for us to really recognize that we are living through unprecedented times. And just as the old ways of doing things, you could call it the old story for humanity, is beginning to show signs of aging, so too at the same time there is a new story for humanity that appears to be emerging, an upsurge in the best of the human spirit, an outpouring of kindness to people in the neighbourhood, an outpouring of gratitude to frontline workers for everything that they are doing to help people going through this experience. We also have an outpouring of altruism in taking precautions not to spread infection to other people. And there's an outpouring of inspiration for the world and how we would like the world to be beyond all this pain and suffering. So our theme for today is really looking at what exactly is going on right now. Our masterclass is getting to the essence, as we try to get to the bottom of the spiritual significance of these changing times. Well, all of our speakers come from the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University, and as the name suggests, it's a university for the spirit. It's a place for understanding the self, for understanding ideas around the soul. It's an organisation that has meditation and teaching centres in over 110 countries right around the world, and an active presence in even more countries than that. And the activities of the Brahma Kumaris are hugely varied, right from having a permanent office at the United Nations in New York to getting involved with some of the poorest tribal communities in the desert plains of Rajasthan in India. The organisation was founded in India in 1936 through a series of visions and teachings that came through the original founder, Brahma Baba, teachings which are very much geared to this period of time that we're going through now, this period of transition. And Brahma Baba decided quite early on that it was important that women should be put in front, and as a result the Brahma Kumaris is now the largest spiritual organisation of its kind in the world to be led by women. Well, let me tell you about one of those women, because today's masterclass is with someone who has the honour of being able to call herself the first Western woman to come into contact with the Brahma Kumaris back in the mid-1970s. And not only did she come across the sisters who had recently arrived to London from India, but she was able to recognise the truth of what it was that they were saying and experience the depths of knowledge that was being shared, and experience for herself the life of a yogi. And since then, she has devoted her entire life to deepening her understanding and her experience of the practice of Raja Yoga meditation. For many years, Denise Lawrence has been based in the United States of America, and it's from there, from San Francisco, that Denise joins us today. Denise, so welcome to you to the Masterclass series. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Philippa.
Now, as I said, you've taught meditation in the States and you've lived there for decades. You've also lived in Europe and in fact in India. And there really aren't that many countries that you haven't been invited to around the world to share your insights into human nature and explore the changes that we're seeing in the world at this time. So you really have got a very good global perspective. Why do you think it is that we're experiencing at the same time both the worst of times but also the best of times? That there are these two things that seem to be going on for us in the world at the moment?
Well, in a way, your Dickensian quote is quite relevant because at that time there was an epochal change. And this is the beginning of the Tale of Two Cities, where everything was collapsing and breaking down. And subsequently, a completely new way of living. The social setup in England changed dramatically, and the rest of the world also. The Industrial Revolution happened, and now we are seeing something like much, much bigger. Many people feel that we are in an epochal change, and I feel so too. I see that time is going very, very fast. Time in the sense that things are changing quickly. Epochal changes used to be once in a while. Now they're quickly. I am quite an older person, so I saw the changes that happened in the 60s, which were big. Then I saw the beginning of video, and then the beginning of internet, and the beginning of social media, and all of these things have changed the world. And what I'm observing at the present time, in the middle of the COVID-19, the climate change is accelerating, the intense weather events, the wars that are maybe not reported or underreported, but you get information, if not from mainstream media, from other places. So people are saying, what's going on? And they're talking about it deeply. So I think the essential thing is the spirit is in a state of change. Society is in a state of change. The natural world, the Mother Earth, you can say, is in a state of change. And I've been thinking about war, because there's so much war around. And although with war, there's total destruction, especially for the people who are in it. And I have been in Germany for quite some time recently and had a lot of contact with the refugees coming in from Syria, and hearing their stories and seeing how they're adapting to the European culture and learning German from Arabic. And, it is quite difficult. And they are like collapsed. Everything is collapsed. And it's like this collapsing is happening here in the United States. The shops like Macy is going into bankruptcy, and as you said, unprecedented. And so what happens when it's unprecedented is you go to the inside and you start saying, oh God. People say, oh God, what's going on? And so people are beginning to think about the spiritual aspect and to want it, because not only is the external things breaking down, but here you see huge amount of alcohol consumptions really spiked. Domestic violence really spiked. Being locked down at home for many people is very dangerous. School used to be safety from a dysfunctional home. Now school is locked down. Everything is kind of falling apart. And this book from Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart, which is interesting because it showed how the traditional African world everything was falling apart when the European ideas came in. So what's coming in now, as you mentioned earlier, is things are falling apart, and some new, very powerful light, goodness, something extraordinary is coming in. So it's like a lot of people want to get onto that wagon. Not really wagon, but how do you call it? And so
to understand. Yeah, and I think for many people, they're feeling that all of these things that you're talking about, which we're experiencing all around us on a scale that, we really haven't seen before, that all of this is actually a wake-up call. And where we've been waking up for a long time to the effect that we're having on the environment, to the effect that our lifestyle is having, that it's unsustainable, that it creates a bigger gap between the rich and the poor. But I wonder, from a spiritual perspective and the perspective of the human spirit, what it is you feel that we're actually waking up to. What is stirring in the soul of humanity?
Well, what's stirring in the soul is, I, the soul, have been comatose. I've been asleep. I've been out of contact with my inner world. I have allowed myself to get weak, and I cannot handle these things in a spiritually weak condition. And so the desire is to take strength. And so the connection with a divine source to take strength to the spirit so that we can handle these things and adapt to these changes and keep ourselves sane. We have huge numbers of people contacting us. Okay, what to do, how to manage, how can I get my inner strength, how can I have faith, how can I have confidence, how can I get through these times of uncertainty. People feel this insecurity. And at such a time, people start to remember that there is security in being close to, maybe you can say, a source which is beyond what's immediately in front. So people are really, and with all of this digital everything, people are able to relate to something that's not physical. It is physical, but it's coming through the internet or whatever. So the idea of having a connection in the mind with a source that is somewhere, anywhere, is doable. Otherwise, people used to need something really, really physical. Now it's different. And so they want to know, what is the human spirit? Where are we going? This is another question. Where are we going? And so part of the study that we do lets us know that when you want to make a big leap forward, you have to go through letting go and then move to the next step. And for that, you need to be adaptable. You need to be optimistic. You need to know that it is not possible for things to collapse into nothing. Things just break down so that there can be something new afterwards. This message is very important for people to feel trust in the process and to be able to let go.
You mentioned that people in times of difficulty are turning their thoughts to, the presence of the divine, an energy source that is somehow beyond them. But people also at times like this will feel that, this is punishment from God, or that, how can you believe in God when there is so much suffering and pain in the world? And for many people, the world is experiencing quite a slap in the face at the moment, and the question arises, have we done something wrong to deserve this, or why now? Why is this happening to us?
Well, I think if people think a little bit deeply, the message of be careful, you're messing up the world, be careful, things are much more fragile than you think, has now actually been received. But it's been going on, climate change alerts been going on since 1960. People are talking about pandemics happening every 100 years, quoting the last 400 years, 1720, 1820, 1920, 2020. So it's like, I think people are not really feeling so much that this is punishment going on, but much more that this is wake-up call happening. I got one of these things that comes through the social media. There was a conversation between the devil and God, and they had a picture of the planet under them. And the devil said happily, you know what? I managed to cause all places of worship to shut down. And then God has a big smile and says, yeah, well, I established places of worship in every home, right? And so I think this reflects the feeling that you can manage to sustain yourself spiritually without formal religious buildings and systems, but there is so much access, so much material to help people with meditation. Look at how famous mindfulness has become, and how meditation is being proposed in the medical community. If you're having this or that problem, is if meditate is going to help you. And people come to us more and more and more and more because they know that these things are real. Previously they thought it wasn't real. Now they know it's real and it works, and you need it. You need it like you need food and water and air. You need to sustain yourself spiritually. So the ridiculing of the spiritual has really gone away. And I think that the attitude of God punishing us has diminished, I think, from earlier times, because there's been so many things showing that the formal religious institutions have somehow failed people. And this has also caused people to think about looking after themselves spiritually. And the small networks and like more community spirituality and anonymous groups and all this kind of thing, is people having more faith in that. And I think it's all converging. I think people really know that they're not okay. They're not okay because they have neglected their spirits. And so they want to know, okay, what is a soul? Am I a soul or do I have a soul? How does a soul operate? What is the mind? What is the conscience? How is conscience and understanding? What is intelligence? We know artificial intelligence, and how does it relate to real intelligence?
I think most people can understand the benefit of spirituality for themselves, but I want to look at spirituality as a mechanism for changing the world. Because there are many ways to change the world. We've got political systems that can bring about change. We've got pressure groups. We've got grassroots activity. We've now got social media that is doing huge amounts to raise awareness and bring about change. But what for you specifically can spirituality do, not just to bring benefit to my day-to-day life, but actually to make an impact, a real impact in the world out there? How significant a player do you feel spirituality is in that regard?
I think it's very significant, but I think there are certain things that need to go in place. For example, it has been said since a long time that just as the power of the atom, when you split the atom, releases huge energy, so the soul, which is called in Hindi the Atma, when the soul is stabilized, it gathers together vast energy. So what we have to do is learn about controlling our waste thinking, emotions, feelings, distraction, and whatnot. So we need to learn concentration. And when you get a significant number of people focused on their own soul, focused in pure thought, that releases a huge tsunami of energy that has an effect on people's minds, and an effect on circumstances. And people are beginning to explore this anyway. And this, I think, once it becomes on a larger scale, then you can really work with this energy, and it's real.
There's a lovely story in the Hindu scriptures about everyone giving just their little finger. They call it the little finger of cooperation, and that between everyone they were able to lift a mountain. So this idea of cooperation and this idea of having unity of intention, that we almost need to harness and foster the energy latent within the human soul and direct it towards a common purpose in order to really make stuff happen. Can you say a little bit more about that story and the significance of cooperation?
As you were speaking, I'm remembering how the Berlin Wall came down. And it was a combination of a number of things. One is that it was no longer relevant because, communism was shifting, perestroika was happening. Another is there were sort of mistaken messages were happening. Another is everybody at the same time got this thought, the wall is down, let's take it down. And so I think what we're looking at is a convergence of people's individual feeling becoming collective, of the thing that is no longer relevant becoming clearly no longer relevant, and it can't hold together if it's lost its relevance. So we're at a point in time when things are collapsing, nothing is set in stone. That means new ideas can come in really well. I remember when there was big changes in the 1960s, the same thing. The old system was no longer relevant. Messages didn't get through. And the young people got the idea, we need to change the education system. We need to be free. We need to come out of this old paternalistic way. And it just collapsed overnight, And the other sisters that I'm with are also thinking that, this is going to be an overnight thing when people all of a sudden get the idea and what is not relevant becomes clearly not relevant, and then change happens suddenly like a jerk. It's not a smooth thing. So I anticipate such a thing.
It's almost like a critical mass is reached for real change to take place.
Yes. And for us to see it's on the level of thought, on the level of relevance, and on the level of like a moment of saying, yes, let's do it. Like it becomes possible. All of a sudden, you just feel it's possible, let's do it. Whereas previously, it's not possible, we can't do it. And then all of a sudden, yes. So all of these elements coming together. And then there is another element, which I think is also real, and people, I think, are picking it up, destiny. Like they say, an idea whose time has come. It's also a circumstance whose time has come, and all of a sudden, boom. Like when war breaks out, boom. You aren't expecting it. All of a sudden, oh, there's war, there's war, there's war. Or there's peace, there's peace, there's peace. Or it's different now. So certain things can take consciousness of people from individual different ideas to one thing. Like, have you seen birds when they fly in formation, or large groups of birds, and they do acrobatics like one? And I've experienced in different circumstances when we have large numbers of people meditating together, our thought becomes one. So it's like 1,000 people with one soul, or 20,000 people with one soul. That is a very powerful energy. When everyone is lined up like that, you can actually cause change.
I'd like to try and frame this, if we can, in a really macro level, because when we look to our past, it's very easy to form the opinion that we have been evolving throughout the journey of humankind, that especially when you look at medical advancements, technological advancements, and now we've got the whole IT and the AI that you mentioned already, it can feel like we're going from a place of ignorance to, you know, much greater wisdom and understanding. I wonder how you frame your perception of where we've come from in terms of our journey as a species, and also where we're now going in terms of that trajectory into the future. Where have we come from, and where do you see us as now going?
You know this term, the American dream. And so from the end of the Second World War, everything was focused on material advancement and wealth and property and gadgets and all of this. And what I think is happening with this COVID-19 is that whole thing has collapsed like a house of cards. You see, when you have over the period of 1 month, unemployment in the United States go from like 6% to 35%, it's a nightmare, because you can't function anymore. People are afraid what's going to happen when lockdown is finished. All of this, you can say, this illusion that we are so civilized is collapsing, because you see, what's deemed essential services is shops where you can buy guns, and casinos and bars. And so why are they essential is because everyone is addicted. Otherwise, they're not essential. They're only essential if you're an alcoholic, if you're into violence and gambling, you see. And this culture is based on this. And so when all of this is not there, the sort of uncivilized state of people is in your face, and it's everywhere. And COVID-19 is not discriminating one class or a race or this or that. And it's mostly focusing on men. Men seem to have a higher death statistic than women. And so it's like a huge wake-up call to the fact that we haven't actually been evolving. We've got all these things, but in terms of human behavior, human relationship, we are in a very big mess. So when you've got that veneer of progress, when that comes down and you see what's behind it, it's a shock. And then we say, well, what have we done? You know, what have we done?
And actually, do we have today the wisdom that was perhaps demonstrated by civilizations that went before in terms of their refinement and culture, and that maybe we need to reframe the past in terms of perhaps having qualities and abilities that we have now lost ourselves?
Well, this is also getting found, you know, with archaeologists, with photographs from space. They're seeing that these ancient civilizations were very advanced in all sorts of ways, and especially the very ancient ones. And people are scrambling to find the ancient wisdom because they feel betrayed by what we can call as Western civilization. So they're looking to the past for inspiration, for rethinking about what human civilization is all about and has been. And you see the spiritual component is really missing. And I say there's a lot of religious activity, but what we're also seeing, and which was highlighted in something like The Handmaid's Tale and Testament, is that this also fails. Even the system of morality has failed us. The system has created disequilibrium, and we have trashed the planet, which the ancient civilizations used to take very great care of it. Even if you go back 1,000 years in England, there were laws that you cannot cut trees down because they were, and there was no problem at that time. you know. So we can see that desertification, salination of the land, and what we have done is irreparable damage. And so people are seeing that this kind of spiritual irresponsibility, the spiritual emptiness is the real problem. And so they're scrambling to look at what's happened. We have really not evolved. We really haven't.
Very interesting. And you're talking there about ancient civilizations, and of course you have dived very deep into the taproot of the wisdom of the ancient civilization of India, and it has held you for 40 coming on 50 years now. I wonder if you could put into words what it is about that heritage from the Indian subcontinent that has richness that people are now beginning to turn to and look to and say, okay, the American dream, or whatever you want to call it, is collapsing. Maybe there's some wisdom here.
What I think is very interesting is that this kind of wisdom that you see in India has persisted with continuity. The same kind of wisdom was broken through the system of colonialism and even the spread of religion. And but when you dig deep, you find that everyone was connected to something similar. You go to Mexico, you go to Africa, you go to Iceland, you go to all of these places, and you find that there was a very beautiful balance and symbiosis between human beings, the divine nature. Everything had to be in balance. Now nobody's concerned about balance, and even the planet Earth itself is tipping. And when it tips too much, very unstable. So people are feeling instability in so many areas. And in the ancient times, they're sort of aware of a grid of energy, like all the Roman roads that you have in England, Europe. They're all running along the grid lines of energy because it was like a grid that held everything together in balance. And now nobody thinks about geomancy or feng shui or any of that, because they're just thinking about money and not concerned about the price you pay to get it. And now people are thinking, I am not for sale. I am not raw material that you can do what you want with. I'm a being, you see. And it's changing people's sense of what existence is about. And if it's only materialism, it has no meaning. And people are craving for meaning. And you get meaning when everything makes sense. When nothing makes sense, it's a crisis of meaning, like a philosophical crisis. And when you get a crisis, this crisis becomes a stimulus for solution and moving forward. And then whatever is not relevant, you just let it go. And I think when you lose everything, then you have nothing to lose. So you can, yeah.
Talking about this wisdom of India makes me think of Gandhi, and of course one of Gandhi's most famous sayings, "Be the change." In other words, there's no point just acquiring points of knowledge and information unless you're going to use them to actually make changes in your life and really anchor it and become really the change that you want to see. From the many years that you have spent living as a yogi, meditating, doing all the things that you do, what for you would be your top tips for really making a difference in terms of what you can do in your life? Even if you're in lockdown and can't go out or go anywhere, what can you still do to feel that you can make a difference, make a change to yourself and to the world?
Well, I think as you're speaking, I'm remembering a couple of quotes from the Gita, and I'm very interested in the Gita and writing about it. But people don't realize this is a 5,000-year-old scripture, and people don't realize that the expression, you are your own best friend and your own worst enemy, comes from there. And so really look at what are you doing that is carrying you forward, and what are you doing that is self-destructive? Because our current culture actually encourages people to do things which are not in their best interests. And we have to challenge that. And the other thing that is also in that same section of the Gita, which I find very interesting, is a spiritual law that says circumstances arise, persist for some time, and then they subside. And during that time, you have to endure. That's all you have to do, is have this power to hold steady while the crisis is going on, and then you learn something from it, you get strengthened by it. A very beautiful part of the study of the Brahma Kumaris, which I went to the Philippines some years ago in the wake of a very, very big typhoon which killed masses of people and was highly destructive. And people were asking me, because the problem was spiritual, right? They were asking me, why did this happen? Because the UN and everything, they gave food and shelter and water, and they put all the physical stuff, but it didn't really deal with the spiritual thing, and they needed to know why. Like you said, is it punishment or what? And I was able to tell them 2 reasons why it happened. One is to make you strong, and the other is to make you experienced. And when they heard that, they said, yeah, that makes sense. And then they didn't take it as a punishment or something that doesn't make any sense. They say, yeah, it's like God loves us and wants to make us strong and experienced, because more is coming down the line sooner or later, you know. So these ideas which really reinforce a person from the inside and enable a person to take a kind of leadership role by their attitude and feeling. I remember some years ago, quite a long time ago, we had a massive earthquake in Los Angeles, and it happened at 4:30 in the morning, which is the time when we are meditating. And everything came down. This big highways came down, and all the cars on it also came down, and people would, ride off of a bridge, and there would be no more bridge, and big thing. And what happened in the following minutes and hours and days, people just converged on the center because they felt it was a safe place. And so I think this is another thing that we can do individually, small group or larger group, is to have this safety for people. People believe that if they come near us, it's safe. We didn't tell anybody that, but they think that. Another thing that is going on in Brahma Kumaris that I think is very interesting is that we meditate according to certain times. And so there are waves of meditation circling the planet. And as we intensify our meditation individually and collectively, it's creating a current which people can lock into and lock onto. And we need individually to participate in that to make it strong, you see. And we do, because this is our discipline to do this every day. And so 24 hours a day, this wave is going on all the time, all the time, all the time. And now,
so no matter where you are, you can tune into this through meditation and feel that wave.
It's 24 hours a day. In every time zone, somebody or some group is meditating. That means, meditating means what? You're internalizing yourself, connecting with your own soul, focused, very focused, and you're tuning to the divine, pulling that energy and then dispersing it, you see. This is like something happening all the time. It's invisible, but it's tangible.
It feels like you're pulling some kind of energy down from up above and bringing it into yourself. And you've talked about the problem of fear, which I think is very common, and people looking for ways to handle that. And you've also talked a lot, as we've spoken, about this presence of the divine, this energy source. Before we go into our meditation, can you just say a few more words about what for you that energy really is and how you experience it manifesting in you and in your life?
It depends a lot on, people believe in God, but what is God? Who is God? How is God? What is God like? Is there such a thing as God? This is an unresolved question. For me, there is a being who is higher than a human, non-human being, who has a mind, who has intense energy, and who loves the world, and who loves humanity, and who is just reciprocal. If you turn your mind to that, however you want to call it, you will get a response, especially if you are real and true and sincere. This being, this energy does not respond to fake. It has to be real, because this one is real. This one is called the truth. So you have to be true and real in your heart. Love. Love is such an energy that comes from that source. Love, spiritual power, peace, purity. You bring that in, and it changes you. It strengthens you. It fills all your empty spaces, all the dark spaces in your soul, and then it radiates from you. You become like a ball of warm light that is full of love, and it radiates, and it goes into the atmosphere, and people feel it, you see. And when you do this intensively and for more time, then people feel it more. It's a sustaining energy. Like if you look out of the window and you see a beautiful day, you feel good. But if you have like a beautiful day, not just from the sunshine, but from this invisible divine source, which is functioning via different like beacons, you take it and people see it, or they feel it. And so it is real. And people feel that it's real when they can feel it. If they can't feel it, they don't think it's there. So I think important, what a yogi is supposed to do is to make this tangible for people.
Well, let's have a go at doing that right now and see if we can transform ourselves into beacons of this beautiful light energy that you're talking about, and send some of that light out into the world for those who are really looking for it and struggling, which so many people are at the moment. So if you could just guide us with your own thoughts as you meditate, and we can experience some of what you're talking about here right now.
Take a moment to just center yourself and just feel the energy of your being throughout your body. And then draw that energy to a focused point through your heart, up into the center of the forehead. And just feel yourself connected to your being. And as you do that, feel the energy intensifying. You're concentrated on your being. You feel light. You are illuminated from the inside. And then allow yourself to withdraw from sense perception. See with your inner eye the inner world, and in that you have contact with a dimension of light, and in that dimension of light there is a source, a presence, a beautiful energy, so bright, so powerful, peaceful. And you can feel these waves of love reaching you from that light and just going deep inside every part of your being, filling you with strength, with love. You feel good, you feel extraordinary, comfortable. Just hold yourself steady, receiving, absorbing, and then let it radiate forth from you. It will go where it has to go. You're steady, concentrated, comfortable, and it is flowing from above, flowing through you and reaching all around the world like a great river of light, radiating, flowing, moving, pulsating. You are filled with that light, glowing. You hold it steady and it's just moving through you. You feel this is what it's like to be. Then gently let yourself return back to the everyday world. Reconnect with your body, the place where you are, and still keep connected with that energy that is still there. As you go about your day, your relationships, doing what you have to do. And let yourself really know that I am more than just this body. That spirit within is real. And this is my doorway to that divine source. Om Shanti. That means I am at peace. I am a being of peace. Thank you.
Beautiful. Om Shanti, Om Shanti. And what a lovely thought that that experience that you just led us into is something that is circling the earth 24 hours a day and that whenever we choose to, we can sit in stillness and silence and tune into that and draw down, as you're saying, some of that beautiful energy into our own hearts and into our own lives. Denise, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Masterclasses. Thank you so much for sharing just a thimbleful of what is there to be shared, but you've really given us a lot to take away and think about, and in moments of anxiety, I'm sure, recall a lot of what you've shared with us today, and that will really support and sustain people. So thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you so much, Philippa. Thank you.
And thank you to you as well for joining us from where you are. I hope you have really felt that wave of peace that Denise has been talking about and sharing with us. And I hope you'll be able to join us for tomorrow's masterclass. Until then, take good care, keep safe, Om Shanti, and goodbye. "21 Masterclasses in New Consciousness. New ways of thinking, being and doing for the new you." Pioneering thinkers from countries right around the world.